College football season, week 0 is done. Week 1 is here, and it's time for some ACC teams to get kicked off around the Triangle. I'm Luis Fernandez. He's Mark Bergen. Welcome to Triangle and 2. Mark, we have so much to talk about, so I just want to dive straight into it. NC State, UConn. They are the first team in the area that's kind of getting started this week. They're playing on Thursday at 7:30 p.m. At UConn, so it is a road game for the Wolfpack to get things started. What are your first thoughts as we get ready for NC State to begin their season?
Yes, and head coach Dave Doran even downplayed this earlier this week, saying, does last year's game have any bearing on this year's game? 2 new teams, you got a new quarterback, new offensive coordinator, and it's going to be a first glimpse of Brennan Armstrong. And can they rekindle the magic of 2021 when he was paired at Virginia with offensive coordinator Robert Anae? It's going to be the first glimpse of that. And Lewis, what I'm looking at this from a big picture standpoint, if you're NC State, is you don't want to look past this game looking ahead to week 2 against Notre Dame. So we're going to get a first glimpse of that. And one other thing too, Lewis, we're all going to have to figure out what channel the CBS Sports Network is on before kickoff 7:30 on Thursday night.
That's 100% the worst part of these like non-conference games early on is you're just like trying to, okay, how do I watch this? How do I do that? Yeah, I mean, I don't think NC State is going to look past UConn just because of the fact that it's the first game of the season, right? And you've had to prepare for them. You haven't really had much of an opportunity to do anything else. I don't even know if NC State would have like looked at Notre Dame film from their week 0 game against Navy, especially since they have so much familiarity already with Sam Hartman. But yeah, it's going to be interesting because there is so much new with this NC State team, and I think we're gonna, with all 3 of these games that we're going to talk about here, I think we're all going to learn something very quickly about all 3 of these teams, right? So what does offensive coordinator Robert Anae and Brennan Armstrong, what do they bring to the table for NC State? Do we see this kind of change in philosophy that we are almost expecting, where last year it was, all right, listen, State's going to play great defense. They're going to punt the ball. They're going to see if they can score on defense. They're going to see if they can get some safeties, and they're just going to try not to turn over the ball on offense, right? That's how everything started to go down once Devin Leary got hurt. So does that change a little bit? Are they going to be running this more of like kind of fast tempo, spread it out type offense? Is that what we are going to see? Is that going to be successful? That's the offensive state is the prime thing I'm going to be watching against UConn on Thursday.
Yeah, and it's like, this isn't 2003 anymore, Lewis. Like,
no.
It's hard to win football games by not turning the ball over, being able to run the ball effectively, playing good defense, and then essentially winning the turnover battle and winning special teams. It's hard to win that way. So you're excited about Brennan Armstrong. He's demonstrated the ability to do this 2 years ago at Virginia. Anae goes to Syracuse. So then it's like his production completely drops off. Who he's going to throw to, though, because Thayer Thomas is a Minnesota Viking now. Devin Carter's now at West Virginia. So it's like, who are going to be the guys that step up that are going to catch passes from him this season? I'm looking at Julian Gray, Keon Lassane. Then you got this freshman, Casey Conception, a name we'll probably talk about throughout the course of the season for the Wolfpack. But Armstrong can't do it all by himself. Who he's going to throw the ball to is more so what I'm looking at than we've seen the lefty play at a high level in this conference before. And can you rekindle the magic? And it's just like, hopefully he's not stunted. Hopefully other teams don't have too much tape on him of these are the things he likes to do. These are the things that we know that we can take away. We get a first glimpse of that on Thursday night. But again, I go back to, it's going to be a tough matchup. Again, UConn, this is a team that went 5-1 at home a season ago. Now, I know last year's games have no bearing on this season, but you're going to get a first glimpse of that. I just hope the Wolfpack aren't looking past UConn in advance of the Notre Dame game. That's where I'm at just from a big picture standpoint heading into this game.
Yeah, when you look at kind of turning to UConn now, right, it's I think we all have this image of what UConn football is in our head, which is not good, That's the image that comes to mind when we think of the Huskies football. But when you look at where they were last year under head coach Jim Mora, in the first half of the year, their schedule is a lot more difficult in the first half of the year. They're playing some higher quality teams that are not Power 5, like a Utah State, for example, a Fresno State, and then you also have some really good teams that were Power 5, the Syracuse, the Michigan, the NC State. Syracuse was started off really hot last year. This is a home and home with NC State. That's why they're even playing. And they lost at NC State last year, 41-10. So what does that mean? Does that translate? I agree. This kind of feels different because you look at what they did in the back half. And I asked, Dave Dorn said on Tuesday, right? That was Tuesday? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been a long week. Dorn said on Tuesday, listen, like the team that they played at the beginning of the year last year is a totally different team than who UConn was towards the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
You saw them have a convincing win against FIU. They upset Boston College 13-3. They beat a solid UMass team. They beat Liberty 36-33. So they were winning in a lot of different ways. They did end the season with 2 losses at Army and then in their Myrtle Beach Bowl against Marshall. So it'll be interesting to see. They have a new starting quarterback this year. I want to make sure I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Joe Fignano is his name. He was
well done, Lewis. Well done there.
Shout out to the UConn PR pronunciation guide. But the thing with Fignano is he was the starting quarterback at Maine for the past few seasons, and UConn's current offensive coordinator was the guy in charge at Maine when he first got there. So do you see a little bit of kind of coming together there, a little bit of synergy between the two? He's someone who can throw the ball and can also run the ball as well. He had a career high in yards and carries, I believe, last year. So something to keep an eye on because UConn's offense last year was just very bad passing the ball. They have a solid defense. They have a good rushing group. They have a good running back core. But can they be more than one-dimensional? That could make NC State's day a little bit harder in East Hartford.
And you certainly see the parallels between UConn's transfer quarterback and the rapport with an offensive coordinator to what NC State has with Brennan Armstrong. I'm looking at the running backs, though, and that's something that Dave Dorn even mentioned of. They've got 2 running backs who are capable of playing at an ACC level. So that's going to be tough to slow those 2 players down. Mm-hmm. And it's Devontae Houston and then Victor Rosa for UConn. So that's what NC State's defense is tasked with. I go to what NC State's defensive coordinator says, though, and says, in my time here in Raleigh, this is as good of a defensive line group as I've had. It's a line of scrimmage game. We're going to talk about the big uglies up front right now, Lewis. If you're Davin Van, CJ Clark as the nose tackle, Savion Jackson, Travali Price. For me, it starts with Clark up front as the nose tackle. You build your house from the ground up. That's the foundation. The defense is going to start because this was a very good Wolfpack defense a year ago, right? So if you want to replicate that success, I think there's going to be some regression. I really do, because this was an NC State defense that was ranked 20th in total defense and 11th in scoring defense in the entire country. There's going to be some regression there. How can you make up for that? You have 2 experienced cornerbacks. If you're the Wolfpack from a defensive standpoint, linebacker Peyton Wilson's pretty good too. But also too, from a special team standpoint too, Christopher Dunn, who's the Lou Groza winner too, is no longer there too. So that style of play where it's low scoring game, you can eke it out in the end. You go 8-5 last year. I don't know if that's going to work again for this season, Lewis. I don't know.
It's a style of play that I think has a ceiling. And so I think
definitely
that if there's ever a time to start transition mindset and transition the team philosophy a little bit, I think now is the time to do that, because I don't think there is as much pressure on NC State this year as compared to last year. Last year, there were expectations that NC State could come out here and win the ACC. Oh, Devin Leary could be the ACC player of the year, all of that stuff. This year, there are a lot less expectations. So I think that just kind of frees things up for a little bit for State. I agree. I don't think this defense is going to be as good as last year, but I do think they're still going to be really solid because they had players, the guys who are starting now played last year, in different ways because of injury, just getting into rotations, things like that. And their defensive line and their secondary is very good. I look at, Davin Van. I think he's someone who could really have a great year for them on the defensive line. He's someone who gets a lot of credit from just his own teammates. So I think there is a lot of potential with this State team. that all comes down to what does that offense do? And because UConn's defense is not great by any means, but they have some older, more experienced players now. Year 2 under Mora, it's going to be, I think, a defense that if NC State struggles offensively, they are going to be good enough to slow them down even more. So it's not by any means it is, of all the 3 local triangle teams playing, this is the easiest game for the local triangle team. However, I do think it has the potential to be tricky if NC State is struggling out the gate this season.
And I'll leave with this, Lewis. This game opened up Wolfpack favored by 16.5. It's moved to 14.5. And in keeping Brennan Armstrong upright, you want to keep him clean. You hear that a lot about quarterbacks. You're losing a pair of all-conference linemen. Grant Gibson, who graduated, Chandler Zavala, who's now on the Carolina Panthers. So something else. Again, it's not flashy to talk about the line of scrimmage and linemen, but it is a very important component of football.
Yes, I love talking about the big uglies. Don't get me wrong. I'll talk about.
They deserve their credit, Lewis.
They do. We give plenty of credit to the offensive and defensive linemen here on Triangle and 2. Okay, speaking of giving credit, let's go ahead and turn now to Saturday's game. Hey, did you know that college football teams actually play on Saturday? I had no idea. Not when you look at the schedule for these 3 local teams, with NC State playing on Thursday, UNC playing on Saturday, Duke playing on Monday. So this is the one that kind of, if you are just a casual college football fan, UNC taking on South Carolina to start off the season, you probably have circled on your calendar on Saturday, because you have a number 21 North Carolina team that has a potential Heisman quarterback in Drake Maye. They're playing in the Mayo kickoff, however it's phrased. These opening week kickoff things, I never get the names of the actual Chick-fil-A bowls, well, all that kind of stuff. And then South Carolina was a team that was really knocking some folks off last year. They beat Tennessee. They beat Clemson. Spencer Rattler is a solid quarterback who was Heisman contender just a couple of years ago before he transferred to South Carolina, coming over from Oklahoma. So there, I think, is a lot of South Carolina is one of those teams that college football fans are like, interesting. I want to see what they can do.
But, I'm going to say this, Lewis. I'll say this for you. Spencer Rattler has been an enigma for South Carolina for as long as he's been there. That's the word I would use, because I don't think there's a ceiling. I also don't think there's a floor. And it's that consistency of when he was at Oklahoma, you had Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts, and you had all these great quarterbacks back to back to back to back. You're expecting him to perform at that high level. I mean, to where he was expected to be the next guy, the next first round pick as a quarterback out of Oklahoma. He's proven the ability to play at a very, very high level. How disappointing it would be if you're a Tar Heels fan. You want to get back to a conference championship game. You want Drake Maye to potentially win the Heisman Trophy, to get knocked off in week 1 in prime time with College Game Day doing its pregame show on Saturday morning before it airs in prime time on Saturday night. The stage is set for both of these players. And naturally, we're going to look at the quarterbacks, Lewis. But that to me is whoever wins this game, we're going to be looking at them in a national spotlight and a national limelight based on how this game plays out. Rattler, Maye, the storyline's set there, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And I think that so this is one of those games that reminds me of 2015 UNC, right? That, for those that remember, that UNC football team went 11-1 that season. They rounded off 11 straight wins after week 1. Their lone loss was to South Carolina in Bank of America Stadium. And they had a lot of turnovers, and there was not a lot of success. And that UNC team ended up playing really well as the season continued, with Marquise Williams, Mitch Trubisky getting in the mix a little bit. But this moment kind of reminds me of that a little bit, because it is a possible season-defining game. And you do not define, and it's such an oxymoron to even say that, you do not define your season in the first week. However, what you do is you set the national expectations a little bit. And it is going to be, if we want to go under the assumption that Drake Maye is doing all he can to win the Heisman this year, he's going to do whatever he can to help the football team. But if he plays really well, he could win the Heisman this year, right? You're competing against a guy in Caleb Williams in Southern California who has all the attention, has all the resources, is playing in the dying Pac-12, is playing in Los Angeles. Like, the attention is going to be on Caleb Williams. He is the presumed number 1 overall pick. He reminds you of Patrick Mahomes and all this stuff. Great. If you want to be in New York in December, UNC needs to win this game, and Drake Maye has to perform well. I think he will, but it's fascinating. I want to go back to Spencer Rattler here really quick for a second, just kind of because you talk about this almost like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type notion of Spencer Rattler. You look at the first few games of the year, and he was new to South Carolina, still getting his feet under him, but against Georgia State, 227 yards, touchdown, 2 interceptions. Mm-hmm. Against Arkansas in a loss, 377 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 6 sacks. Against Georgia, okay, that's Georgia. Okay, we'll give him some credit here. 118, 2 interceptions. Even against Charlotte, it is 56-20, but 187 yards. They didn't need him to play really well to win some of these games. And then even after that, at the end of September, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions against South Carolina State. So he was struggling, not really playing his best in the first half of the season. And then when South Carolina goes on this run where they beat at the time number 13 Kentucky team, they beat Texas A&M. They beat Tennessee, who was number 5, just coming off a loss against Georgia. They beat their arch rival Clemson in a shootout, 31-30, and it's this really high stakes game. He was playing really well. 6 touchdowns against Tennessee, 3 touchdowns against Vanderbilt. He was much more game manager, 14 of 19 against Kentucky. Like, he was playing much more to the expectations. My question is, which version of Spencer Rattler do we get? But I don't know.
Let me go there.
I've talked a lot, Mark. You continue.
No, you're good. You're good. I'll go to the defensive side of the ball, and I do want to finish on UNC's offense, but I'll go to the defensive side of the ball. Gene Chizik and company. I know you got Cedric Gray. We're excited about him. Can you show up and actually ball this year to where that onus doesn't fall on Drake Maye in the offense, right? So a year ago, you're giving up 31 points per game.
A lot.
That's 104th in college football. There's only 130 teams. You're giving up almost 450 yards a game defensively. That's 111th in college football. Again, it's only about 130 teams in the FBS, Lewis. You got to be better defensively. Otherwise, look, Drake Maye could ball out and put all the numbers up in the world. If you're not better defensively this season, he's not going to snip New York. The Heisman is a team award. No doubt you have to be prolific as an offensive player. But if North Carolina's defense is how it was a year ago, Drake Maye is not going to New York for the Heisman Trophy presentation, even as a contender. I don't care what kind of season he has. That's just point blank, period, Lewis.
Yeah, and it's not fair, but that's what the Heisman is at this point. And it's interesting because from a defensive perspective, right, I feel like North Carolina and South Carolina are very similar. Where you look at South Carolina, right, in their losses last year, they gave up 44 points in their loss against Arkansas. They gave up 48 in their loss against Georgia. They gave up 38 in their loss against Florida. In the bowl game, they gave up 45 against Notre Dame. So South Carolina's defense also has a lot to prove. I think this is going to come down to you're going to see which quarterback plays better, but which defense steps up and lives up to any kind of off-season expectations that they improved. Because that's what everyone around North Carolina, around Chapel Hill has been saying is, hey, this defense is going to get better. The defensive line looks really good. I think we're going to be getting more pressures. Some of the transfer secondary players that have come in look fantastic. You got depth at linebacker. Like that has been the talk around this UNC team in the offseason, is that their defense is going to be better. So that's something to see. And then the last thing, I know we talk about it a lot over these past couple of weeks, but it's still, as of we're recording this in the middle of the day on August 30th.
You're in my brain. You're in my brain.
Tez Walker. Like, what is the situation?
Make a decision. It's when we're recording this, it's Wednesday afternoon on August the 30th. Like, NCAA, whether it's yes or no, make a decision on the appeal.
And that's whether it's yes or no, because it should be yes, you are eligible. Like, we don't have time for me to step on my soapbox and tell you how the NCAA doesn't actually help.
We've talked about that in previous episodes.
We've talked about it a lot in previous episodes, but UNC needs to know one way or another. So, because right now, what Mac Brown said on Monday in his press conference, what Chip Lindsey said, the offensive coordinator for UNC, the new one, that he mentioned, is that they're having to kind of game plan for two different situations. One where Tez Walker plays, and one where Tez Walker does not play. And if Tez Walker does not play, then that's a little bit more of a kind of a committee approach to this game, to the receiving core, right? You have guys like Nate McCollum who are coming in, sure, but also Kobe Paysour, other guys who have been there for a while, plus even like the running back and the tight end group getting involved. So it can be a bit more by committee, but the way they've approached this with Tez Walker specifically is they have said, be prepared to play, because you don't want to be in a situation if you're Tez Walker or if you're UNC where you haven't really incorporated him into the game plan, and then Saturday at 3 p.m. you find out, hey, the NCAA just gave us a call. You're good to go.
If we find out by that point, Lewis, I swear we're going to upload this podcast episode and we're going to find out a decision one way or another. And I know Colorado had an offensive lineman and Deion Sanders was blasting the NCAA's decision. So it's like, if there are valid, good reasons for a player for there to be exceptions, you certainly hope Tez Walker that can be the case. Yeah. And I look at it beyond just the mental health portion of it. It's what about his future in his ability to try to become an NFL player?
Yeah.
You want to play with Drake Maye, the best of the best, versus whoever the Tar Heels quarterback will be in 2024, if he in fact has to wait. So You got that. You mentioned Chip Lindsey too. The rapport that a quarterback has with the coordinator. I'm curious to see, is there any difference compared to what we had a year ago when you had a different OC with Drake Maye? Again, a lot of these questions will start to get answered come Saturday night.
Just like with NC State, we're going to learn a lot about that offense on Thursday against UConn. We're going to learn a lot about UNC and who they are as a team on Saturday against South Carolina. Transitioning to our final game preview here, we're going to learn a lot about the Duke Blue Devils when they take on the reigning ACC champion Clemson on Labor Day at 8 p.m. on Monday in Wallace Wade.
All right, I got two things for you, Lewis, right off the top. So what I first want to ask, because this game's being played Monday night in prime time on Labor Day, how much do you think the line is going to move in Clemson's favor between now and kickoff on Monday night?
I mean, what is it?
I think everyone's going to be trying to recoup their losses over the weekend.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Do you know what the line is right now?
The last I checked, it was 12. I will go ahead and look again. We're going to get research on this.
That's where it's been, right around
13
that kind of
right now is what I'm seeing.
So, I mean, I think that line's going to increase as the weekend goes on, because I think that's fair. It doesn't. That you had one thing. Let me hear your second thing before I get into this. Go ahead.
All right, I'm going to deny even saying this a week from now. Just going to preface that. Are you prepared to live in a world where Riley Leonard is the Triangle's top quarterback?
The Riley Leonard hype train is full steam ahead, Mark Bergen. Full steam ahead.
As a UNC fan, can you take that, Lewis? If they pull off the upset in all seriousness, it's not likely. Duke last beat Clemson in 2004. But that stage and that opportunity is there. Again, a week from now, I'm going to deny ever saying this, but
no, I think
I just broke your brain a little bit.
No. I think it's fair, because to me, right, the ACC this year has a lot of really good quarterbacks, and I think that Riley Leonard is, as a UNC alum aside, I genuinely think Riley Leonard is one of the best quarterbacks in the ACC, and one of the better quarterbacks in the country, and deserves more respect and deserves more credit. Primarily because last year, what we saw from him as a full starter for the first time in his career, he was great. He did a really good job of working within the offense and making something happen from nothing. And then over the offseason, he's continued to work on his growth. There was a lot of talk that the entire offense is just feeling better because it's the second year under their system. So I feel really good about Riley Leonard's chances, and I do think so much of what we love the dramatics of college football, of all football in general, right? I think that's when you have when each team plays one game every week, it's so much more dramatic. There are so many more fun storylines to follow, and I genuinely believe that if Duke comes out here, if they beat Clemson, which I think, I mean, like Clemson's a 13-point favorite for a reason, but I think Duke is not getting enough credit as they should. Even if they just cover the spread and keep it a tight game against Clemson, I think the amount of attention that will go on Riley Leonard, the amount that we will see his national stock rise, I think it'll be incredibly impressive. And I am very excited for this game for that one of many reasons why.
Can you keep it close? Duke returns 17 starters. Now, the Blue Devils have a new defensive coordinator as well, and Tyler Santucci. So can you keep that Clemson offense in check, led by Cade Klubnik? And then they're bringing over Garrett Riley, Lincoln Riley's younger brother, to be the new offensive coordinator. They're taking over for DJ Ugalele, who's now, I believe, at Oregon State, is a transfer now. So it's Cade Klubnik's team. Shipley in the backfield is going to be tough to slow down too, but Clemson's offense is what's hamstrung this team. Maybe not, say, in the ACC, but in these big-time national games where you're going up against, say, other conferences. And it's why Clemson's been down the last few years, as the offense hasn't been what it needs to be. Now, defensively, it's like you got 4 players on the ACC all preseason team. Clemson's defense is always stout. Can you keep it close? Can you cover? And if you're Duke, can you prove that last season's 9-14 wasn't a fluke? And look, I'm as bullish on Mike Elko as there is, because look, he gets a contract extension through the 2029 season. Duke's already saying, we don't want another school to poach him. We like what he's building in Durham. This is a great opportunity for Duke on Monday night. If you can at least keep it close. No, there's no moral victories in football, but that would be a moral win for the Duke Blue Devils come Monday night.
Well, that's part of it too, is that Duke is not, I think they have transcended the moral victory plane, right? Duke is more about results right now. Last year was about moral victories in a lot of different ways for Duke.
When you hadn't won an ACC game, and Mike Elko came in last year, and it's like they had a 13-game ACC losing streak, Lewis.
Yeah, it was bad. It was very bad. But they have transcended that. They've moved past that. And so now they're about taking those next steps. And, it's so tough because the storyline, I feel like, you've heard the same storyline over and over and over again about Duke all offseason. But it is the story. It's the schedule is so much harder. What can you do now? How can you take this next step as a program? And I think you do that by competing against Clemson. I'm not really concerned. So I think to me, Duke's defense is going to improve. And I think that their defensive line that is the experience in Duke's team. They have a lot of depth as well in the secondary. Losing Shaka Hayward is really tough. Linebacker, went in the NFL draft, undrafted free agent, I believe. So what happens next? But I will say that offense, I think, is going to be that is what's going to be helping to keep them in the game against Clemson if that offense succeeds. If Riley Leonard does well, if Jalen Calhoun and Jordan Moore, 2 of the better receivers in the ACC, continue to grow, that'll be interesting for me. Another thing from a statistics perspective, right? Because this is Cade Klubnik's first full season as the starter, and it's a new offense. And while he was solid in his reps last year, he a little up and down in some ways when he stepped in for DJU.
For someone who was the number 2 quarterback in his recruiting class too. So he has high expectations, Lewis.
Exactly. So my question is, and another one of those storylines that's followed Duke around all offseason is, what does the defense continue to be big play oriented? Does it get turnovers? Duke had the number 2 best turnover margin last year, plus 14. I want to say is what they were last year. And what makes repeating that difficult is just statistically speaking. We talk about the analytics in football and blah, blah, blah. But when you look at the numbers, turnovers are so incredibly difficult to replicate. You have turnovers are just kind of one of those things where it's like, all right, let's see what happens. You don't really have, you can practice for turnovers, but you can't draw up a play for a turnover. So can they take a Clemson offense that may be struggling out the gate a little bit, and can they force some turnovers there? I think that's going to be big for the Blue Devils.
I'm going to go back to the line of scrimmage, Lewis.
Mm-hmm.
If you're Dwayne Carter, player who's represented Duke at the ACC kickoff event in advance of the season, it's your senior year.
First team all ACC.
You have to establish yourself early in this game and put it on tape to where Clemson's got 4 returning starters on its offensive line. None of those were preseason all ACC selections. If you're Dwayne Carter and company up front, it's going to start with him and the onus in establishing that early. That to me is what I'm going to look at the line of scrimmage. You want to make Cade Klubnik struggle early on. There's no faster way to a quarterback than a straight line. A gap, B gap. Can I cause penetration, disruption in the opposing offense's backfield? That's what I'm looking for early on, first and second quarter from Duke's standpoint. And look, if he balls out, if he shows out, he's then putting that on tape to say, hey, the rest of America, you've got to double and triple team me. And he's able to do that and to play well against the best of the best in this conference. That bodes well for his NFL future as well.
Yeah. And, look at Clemson. The way I just kind of view it is you want to put Klubnik in a position where he's stressing and he's showing his age. And the only way they can beat you is by handing the ball off to Will Shipley, which, that still could beat you. But it's just, you want to try and make them one-dimensional and throw off this high octane or supposedly high octane offense early on.
What I get nervous about is you revert to that and Clemson still beating you if you're stacking, say, 8-9 guys in the box, Lewis.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So do you want to do a prediction for these 3 games, or do you want to just kind of like keep it as analysis?
I think we keep it as analysis.
Okay,
but I would take I'll go through. I would take NC State to take care of business against UConn. I'll go Homer, and I will take Drake Maye and the Tar Heels because they were able to finish a lot of games last season in the clutch late. So they're a 2.5-point favorite as well. I would expect Clemson to take care of business against Duke as well. Can Duke cover? Like, what kind of game does Duke play? Because I don't expect the Blue Devils to win, but like, can you keep it closer? Is it a blowout? And is there a reason why Clemson reigns supreme year after year after year after year? That's kind of how I see things shaking out.
I agree. It's the UNC South Carolina game is a toss-up. But I do lean towards Carolina just a little bit, which is me. I feel like it's me not learning my lesson. Like, not even like UNC football is one of those things where you're like, don't trust them. Like that's the UNC football way. But it's can they change?
I got one more thing for you, Lewis. On Saturday night, in advance on College Game Day, do you think Corso will pick the Tar Heels? And then I guess maybe the better question is, do you want him to pick the Tar Heels on Saturday night?
I want Lee Corso to do whatever is best for him. Live your life, my guy. Like he's an absolute icon. I think he's going to pick South Carolina. That's what I think will happen. I think a lot of people are going to lean South Carolina just because the last time we saw UNC football playing was like, oh man, their defense is so bad. They gave so many points against App State. They, they blew that lead against Oregon. Like all these different things. And Mac Brown mentioned it on Monday as well. Like the UNC's defense, even though they improved in the second half of the season, because of those big moments where they did not live up to their standard, they built a picture for them nationally. And so that's why you got to build a picture for you nationally in this first week in the showcase game against South Carolina. But I think State wins also. And I will be very interested. I think it'll be a competitive game in the fourth quarter. I don't think Duke wins, but I do think they cover against Clemson.
All right.
Don't take my betting advice though. That's just me. That's just me saying. That's just me using a thing as just an idea, as just a little benchmark. All right.
Hey, maybe we'll fade Luis Fernandez this year. We'll see. I cannot wait. Just a few days away, Thursday night, and then Saturday is just going to be an absolute gauntlet. We've gotten through the summer, Luis, so that's a testament to you. And we'll actually get to talk about some gains and some action, just not what we think is going to happen. So I'm absolutely pumped about that.
I'm so excited, Mark. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everyone, for listening to Triangle and 2, WRAL Triangle and 2. Make sure to check us out wherever you listen to your podcasts, as well as on WRAL Sports Fan and on the 99.9 YouTube page. We will see you next week, where we'll finally learn a little bit more. And hey, you know what? You know what we'll be previewing next week, Mark? The start of the NFL season.
Let's go. Let's go.
All right. Y'all have a good one. We'll talk to you later.